So today we will be discussing about corporate governance in India. Per se, there are no direct questions in UPSC so far about corporate governance, but we can never take the risk, right? So we will try to cover as simply as possible, and at the same time, in relation to the contemporary events. So as I told you, ethics theory is very easy. The biggest problem comes with application of what you learn into daily newspaper. So whatever you are learning, like everyday virtue ethics, utilitarianism, and other principles, so those principles are supposed to be invested in your day-to-day newspaper reading and value addition parts, right? For example, uh, uh, during the COVID pandemic, as all of you know, the medicines are sold at very high prices. Everybody is trying to make the most uh, out of the opportunity, right? So is it ethical to make money on the death of others, right? So these are the kind of things that you need to ponder as a UPSC aspirant. So if you are doing that, then you are learning ethics, because theories are very easy. Now coming to corporate governance framework in India, see, there are multiple ways to understand this topic, but from UPSC point of view, it's a very simple concept, right? See, corporate and governance. So corporate and governance. Let's say in general parlance, we use the term governance for governments or public sector units. But here, why corporates? Why did UPSC incorporate that particular term into the syllabus copy? Why do we need to learn about them? The simplest way to understand is impact, right? Because every decision you take or every act you do will have impact not only on private life or your personal individual life, it will also have impact on society, right? So and overall these two things will have impact on government. So that is why UPS is asking you to at least know the basics about corporate governance. Maximum the question can be expected on corporate social responsibility. I think once they have asked about corporate social responsibility, which is whole new dimension, but is a part of corporate governance. Now let's say we will take an example, simple example. Satyam, right? MyTask Private Limited or Satyam scam. So Satyam scam is very famous. Everybody knows what is Satyam scam. Mr. Ramalingaraju has done a fantastic scam, and it hurt a lot of people to the tune of 14,000 crores, right? So why Satyam scam is a landmark event in Indian corporate governance? Because it has shown us a lot of structural weaknesses, right? Now, please understand, the most important thing you need to know is stakeholders point of view, that is empathy and sympathy point of view, and also long-term emotional intelligence. So that is what we have understood, right? Emotional intelligence is about long-term. So we have empathy and sympathy. Why? If I'm the owner of the Satyam and if I'm doing some scam, what will or who will it affect? It will affect me. I will probably go to the jail, obviously. Employees will lose their job, it's very obvious. But at the same time, see, each and every individual who is an employee of a certain organization will prefer stability, right? So based on the stability, he will have some dreams, hopes, he will have some plans. He is buying a home, EMI, etc. The next day he woke up and he found out there is no company, right? So I mean, that kind of thing cannot be done to a fellow individual. That is violation not only in a professional way but also in ethical fashion, right? Right. So in this particular case, volunteers don't happen, but there are certain places where volunteers come into the picture out of brand loyalty, etc. Right? Then you have a lot of people like media is also a stakeholder. Suppliers to your company are stakeholders. Let's say I have set up an MSME, hoping to supply certain goods to you on a regular basis. It can be anything like cabs, water, food, right? So all these people are also directly involved in your company's growth. Customers, competitors, investors, the most important people, right? And see, these are the two major categories that you need to remember: employers and investors and shareholders. The entire corporate governance discussion roams around these three people: shareholders, right? Investors and shareholders. Then you have an obligation towards society, that is environment, government, and financiers. So just for understanding sake, I have given you a simple idea. Now, what happens when Mr. Ramalinga Raju had done something with Satyam? Who are affected? Obviously, employees are affected. People who are working for you are affected. Stakeholders are affected. Shareholders are affected. But also, society has developed a mistrust. That is a long-term damage. People are already very scared about investing in companies, share markets, and all those things. If time and again these kind of scams are happening, then there is a lot of mistrust in the society, and that mistrust falls on the shoulders of the government, because he will be arrested, but burden will be borne by the government. Then SEBI has to be involved, RBI has to be involved, lot of departments will be involved, right? Then somebody has to sell the company. So Mahindra Tech Limited purchased the Satyam company for a less amount of money. That's a whole different story. But the thing is impact. So don't think whatever is happening in corporate governance, right, is only the problem of a private sector or some companies. It is a problem of each and every individual. Am I not audible? Am I audible? Okay, fine. Okay. Yes. So where was I? Yeah. So the impact any company will have is multifold. So right now, if you take any big MNC company in India like Reliance, yes, Airtel, or Vodafone, so all these companies, if they collapse or if there's some issue happens in them, the impact will be so vast and so devastating that government will not be in a position to take care of all the mess. So that is why we have introduced the concept of corporate governance. Just like yesterday's discussion, see, I am X, okay, I am under legal obligations. These are called as framework, right? But as long as I don't have virtues inside me, okay, frameworks will fail sooner than later, right? So frameworks will fail sooner than later, but as long as I have virtues, right, so it will protect me. So corporate governance is like any other branch of ethics, where both external pressures and internal compass both have to come together to help the system. So that is the single biggest thing you need to learn, right? So you understand, right? Company will have multiple stakeholders, and whenever I do something good, it will have positive spillover effects into all these areas. Whenever I do something bad, it will have negative externalities. For example, simple relation between company and government. If I collapse, people will blame the government for lack of regulation and all those things. If I succeed through corporate social responsibility, I will be able to help the government more. So it's a direct symbiosis, the correlation. The same is with customer. The more I succeed, the better products I will give, the more trust they will develop, and everybody will be happy. With the stakeholders, in the initial days, they will give me money. Through growth, I will give them profits. That is how stake markets grow, right? Okay, the same is with creditors. So there is direct relation with everyone. The same is with suppliers. In the initial days, you will give me credit, I will grow. When I grow back, I will order more from you. Together we will grow. So like this, the same is with employees. For example, Infosys is very famous for stock options. The very first employers of Infosys were given salary plus some amount of shares, right? So now they are crorepati's because the shares have grown exponentially. Okay, so you trust in a company in the initial days, you keep the trust. If the company also keeps the trust, collectively everybody will grow. When all these people grow, the economy will grow. So that is the importance of corporate governance. Now, what is corporate governance? So many people, as you can see, has given multiple definitions. We will start with this one because it is more or less accepted by SEBI. You can read the definition, right? Shareholders. Right. So this is a definition from Narayan Murthy committee. Okay. But at the same time, remember here it's a narrow based definition, but at the same time, a very important one. The most important distinction here being made is personal and corporate funds. So I need to know I'm the owner. I need to know the difference between these two things and how not to mix them and how not to use it for my own personal fun. We can take the famous example of Mr. Vijay Mallya or Ramalinga Raju. So both these people have confused or not confused. Both these people mixed these two things, personal and corporate funds. That led to all the mess in the world. So the moment you have a clear-cut distinction between these two things, and remember that your role is only as a trustee of the shareholders' trust. So as long as shareholders have the trust that you are doing a right job, the company will thrive. Okay. So this is a very simple and straightforward definition, no confusions. And internationally, there is one more thing, that is the OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. It also gives a definition of corporate governance. So if you know the SEBI and the international one, that will be more than enough. So if you see this definition also, one of the most important terms they talk about is framework. As I told you, X should have a limitation, X should have a framework, right? Next, rights of the stakeholders or shareholders. So here, see, shareholder does not mean person who has invested in you. Just like the above infographics I have shown you, everybody who have some kind of stake or share in your company's growth is a shareholder, right? But you can take it in money terms also. I have purchased a share of a particular company. I'm also part owner of that company. That is fine. But at the same time, broader the definition, the more responsible you will be. And equitable treatment of shareholders, except through legal means. What do I mean by that? For example, all stakeholders are supposed to be treated equally. There should not be any preferential treatment to anyone. The best case scenario comes is insider trading. See, if you know some inside information that your company is going to purchase some new company, or your company is purchased by some bigger company, the shares might grow up. Okay, so such kind of sensitive information should be kept very confidential, right? You cannot tell someone and you cannot not tell someone. So shareholders, so everybody should get the benefit and everybody should be treated equally. But legal means, for example, if a company is having official shares, so the people who have actually purchased the share market, they will get more importance than, let's say, supplier. Even in insolvency and bankruptcy code, you can observe this distinction, right? So there is a difference between legal equality and company's perspective. In company's mind, everybody should be treated as equal. Okay. The company should be transparent and disclose most of the things. So when you do all these things, automatically you are following corporate governance. And lastly, we will see one more definition, that is Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla's definition. So as all of you know, Kumar Mangalam Birla is the chairman of Birla Industries. So he was approached by Security Exchange Board of India. He headed a committee, right? And he gave a definition about corporate governance. Right. Understand the line very deeply. Indispensable to resilient and vibrant capital markets. So what are capital markets? We have primary capital market and secondary capital market. All of you know this basic definition, right? So where shares are purchased and sold. So when will capital markets be vibrant and resilient? When they know they can trust the companies. If I'm purchasing share of XYZ company, I know that the company is legitimate. It has it is following all the rules and regulations, and there is no scam and scheme happening. So if I invest my money here, it will lead to mutual growth. So share is like an agreement between company and the investor, right? So, and that should be guaranteed. And whose responsibility? Again, the framework. One of the major players of maintaining the framework is SEBI. It is the blood that fills the veins of transparent corporate disclosure and high quality accounting practices. Right. Now, just for 30 seconds, think about any corporate scams that you have heard apart from Satyam. In 1992 is stock market. So that is technically not, but still we will take it. S Bank. Okay. Apart from these two. So rest all companies are good. Cambridge Analytica. That's not, that falls more under cyber issues, right? I mean, technically speaking. Okay, fine. Forget about scams and schemes. Think of all the unethical things that companies are doing. Kingfisher Airways. Okay, good. How can we forget Vijay Mallya? Geetanjali Jewels. Okay, jewelries. Okay, see, just think about insider trading, right? Rajat Gupta case. Think about all the ethical issues that the businesses or the corporates in India are doing or facing. It's a huge list, right? For example, it's an open secret that most of the companies in India manipulate their accounts to show less profits, or to the maximum extent what we call as creative accounting systems, right? Let's say they will establish subsidiaries, We can also include this Vodafone scam, 2G, Vodafone case, right? Base erosion, profit shifting. In today's Hindu, there is an article about that G20 countries planning to get a minimum corporate tax, right? Because the companies are moving away from one country to another country to do creative accounting systems so that they can declare more profits. Is it an ethical practice? Right? For example, Satyam is a landmark scheme because it projected fake invoices. Fake invoices were circulated and the auditors did not stop it, and it inflated the accounting accounts of the system, right? So people believed Satyam is doing fantastically when all Satyam was doing just managing the books of accounts. So the role of auditors, legally tax avoidance is ethical. Okay. Then why do countries have problem with it? So as long as there are loopholes in the system, it's ethical. That is what you are saying. So we have discussed this. What is legal may not be ethical. But at the same time, if I'm a company, probably we will all do the same thing. But I'm just giving you all legal things are not ethical things, right? Morally, it may be wrong. Yes. Okay. So accounting wise, one important thing. Then you have, let's say, corporate espionage, right? Theft of intellectual property rights, trademark issues. For example, have you seen Hindu papers? Sometimes you see a ad called as Vajirao and Reddy, Vajiram and Ravi, right? So Vajiram has to come out multiple times saying we don't have any branches. We are Vajiram and Ravi and not Vajirao and Reddy. So I'm just telling you, similar looking names are piggybacking on someone else's established goodwill is also a unethical business practice, right? Then patent infringements, copying of intellectual property rights. So all these things are wrong. Evergreening of patent is also an unethical business practices. Do you agree? See, honey trapping is a very common practice in corporate world. Then industrial espionage is a very common practice. If you see all the Chinese mobiles, they're outright copies of most of the times iPhone. So whenever iPhone brings a new technology, most of these Chinese companies just outrightly copy it. It is considered as a blunder in the Western countries, whereas in China, it is considered as creative adoption, right? Then recently during COVID, many companies went into huge losses, and big companies with deep pockets came and purchased them. That is called as hostile takeovers or distress takeovers, right? So hostile takeover is you pressurizing a company through many ways to sell it to you. Okay. Whereas distress takeover is because of COVID pandemic, so many companies went into losses, and you are offering them very cheap amount of money, like the lowest money possible, because they are in losses. What happened in the Bayani case, Amazon versus Reliance case, that is also one way unethical business practice. So these are all ethical issues in the businesses, right? I'm not talking about corporate governance per se. I'm linking it to current affairs. Um, these are the things you see in the newspapers. If a company is in the distress, Don't you think it's an unethical practice to give the least amount of money to purchase it? Next, if you are into alcohol business or other kind of business, is it an ethical business? If you are a maker of whiskey or beer, right? Or if you are selling tobacco products, does the question of ethics arise there? Knowing very well that people will die by consuming your products, you are still selling cigarettes. At the same time, if you are a pharma company, without doing a lot of testing on the animals or mice, etc., can you actually create good medicines? Is it an ethical practice? Yes. So other questions can also be like, within the organizations there are a lot of ethical issues. For example, the biggest one being sexual harassment. Isn't it an ethical dilemma? So that is what I'm asking. Does the question of ethical dilemma arise there? What if one is delivering better quality than bootlegged products, which inadvertently will come into the market? Okay. So you're following the scientific technical term technology so that you will provide better whiskey rather than bootlegged ones, which will definitely lead to liquor. Yes, I understand that. So my question is, does ethical dilemmas come into all this picture? Let's say within the organization, we have unethical practices like managers asking for sexual favors for promotions. This is also a very common thing that we see and hear, right? We can also take the present scenario of insurance companies. Insurance companies are rejecting huge amount of claims due to COVID, right? So is it a good governance practice that are ethical practices that insurance companies are following, right? And I mean, in continuation of the same thing, for example, CEOs getting excessive salaries, that is 1%, right? So CEOs will get extraordinary amount of salaries in comparison to the other employees of the company, right? So that is also one big discussion. Insider trading is also a very famous example of companies or business ethics. So what I'm trying to tell you is, corporate governance has a lot of branches which will spill over into the society directly. You see these things every day in the newspapers, right? So all these things lead to a lot of problems. Let's say nowadays everybody is going to online to purchase cars, etc. Then you give certain amount of money to the rating agencies. Yes. And let's say your car doesn't even pass the Euro standards test, crash standards, doesn't have proper airbags. Knowing all these things, you're still releasing the product into the market. That is also business ethics, right? So we have seen all these kind of things recently. Why all these things recently? Down to earth has brought out a simple example: honey. The case of sugar in honey, using of chemicals or artificial flavors in honey production. So honey is a small market, right? Hardly 2 to 4,000 crores of market. Even in that, there is a lot of adulteration, lot of manipulation. So is it an ethical business practice when you label it as pure honey, unadulterated, and you have a lot of chemicals in it? So how do we see all these things? So when you see all these things in day-to-day life, then you can link it to the macro topics of corporate governance. So every decision you take will have an impact on the society. You decided to mix a ingredient, right, which is harmful for the society. The case of Maggie as an example. So where do we draw that line? Now, why do we need to learn about corporate governance? So each and every day, the capitalistic or the capitalism models are changing. Earlier, it was stakeholders. Now it's venture capitalists, angel investors, a lot of startups. So things are changing so drastically, so rapidly that we cannot, our law cannot catch up with everything. So if a system has its own regulatory mechanism, it is good. Why this? Protecting these two people is your most important thing. If somebody trusts you and give you money, protecting them is everything for you. So if you are not following this particular cardinal principle, then you are not following good ethical practices. A lot of scandals and scams are happening in the country, throughout the world also. To mitigate the risk, so if I follow a certain framework, I will be safe. Probably most of the times I won't have any legal issues or ethical issue or moral issues. Then public image and perception. So this has become a very important marketing tool. I think it's more about criminal negligence, right? I don't think it's an ethical dilemma. Probably it should be an ethical dilemma for the policymaker. Should we have a gas plant in the heart of the city, or is it a high time we move it out of the city? But again, argument will be like, when that plant was constructed, it was outside the city. The city expanded in and around the gas plant. So the municipal commissioner should not have given permission for domestic habitation in and around a gas plant, right? So see, company wise, it takes you a huge amount of money, right? Thousands of crores to move away a plant again, or hundreds of crores. So it's not profitable for you. So you won't do that. Public image and perception. If you go to any big company's website nowadays, they will say, if you purchase this particular product, 2% of this is donated to so and so charity, or 1% of every purchase you make is going to a charity. We did not use any child labor. No child labor are involved in this particular product making. No animals are harmed in making of this particular product, right? There is no exploitation of the farmer. So these are the perceptions that the companies are creating nowadays. So we are directly purchasing from the farmers. So every purchase you make from our store is directly going to help the farmers. So what companies are trying to do is create a public image and a perception that we are a very ethical company. Do the business with us. We don't use plastic, we only use recycled material. So by promoting all these things, if the company is creating an image, I will become the loyal customer to that particular company because of my own personal interests. So are companies manipulating my personal interest for their marketing benefit, or is it a win-win scenario? You understand, right? Ethical businesses or ethical business practices are increasing day by day. Can you think of any example? Ethical business practices are increasing, right? Companies are advertising, if you purchase our product, we will donate some amount of money to XYZ. Okay, so please purchase our product. So have you seen any such example? Mhm. is their interest genuinely to help the people or use it as a marketing tool? That is a $1 million question, right? Cosmetics giving up of mica mined through child labors in Jharkhand. Okay. Tractor and Gamble products. Okay. So my question is again this: are they actually genuinely doing this for the sake of doing it, or are the companies using it as a marketing tool? Okay. Swiggy is doing the same thing. Even Zomato yesterday message it saying like we will be donating so amount of money. Please donate to the cause. Right. So some might genuinely care for the stakeholders. Okay. Yes. So recently, for example, Flipkart has announced that I feel it doesn't matter. Okay. But don't you think if they are manipulating your choices just for the sake of this, isn't it a immoral practice? Then do intentions matter more? Mm, when the outcomes are changing, but what is the guarantee that amount is being for assured purposes? Okay. So when the outcomes are changing, the lives, do the intentions matter more? Maybe the intentions matter more than ever, because what if it's only for the show, like you are not actually making any impact, but your sales are increasing. For example, the biggest promoters of recycling business are the petroleum companies. So why are petroleum companies hell bent on promoting recycling? Because you feel that yeah, recycling is happening, but what do you recycle is happening only when the plastic is created. So who are the beneficiaries of creation of plastic? Again, the refineries and the petroleum companies. So only when new plastic is created, so people keep on consuming, assuming that yeah, recycling is there. So no matter, it doesn't matter as long as I keep using the plastic, it will be recycled. So, but actually, the problem of plastic will be ended only when you stop the production of the plastic, not with the recycling. Recycling doesn't actually happen, right? Hardly 20% is, not even 20%. Probably 5 or 10% of the plastic is recycled, whereas the rest is thrown away. But the feeling that if I use this plastic cover, it doesn't matter because there is something called as recycling is a fig leaf. That perception management is more important rather than actually worrying about the planet. So in the deeper sense, I think it actually matters a lot. The intention really matters, because if I'm using AC in my home, I have a feeling that I'm not using, let's say, 420 gas, I'm using R32 or something, so I'm a better consumer, right? So it's only perception, right? Volkswagen or any big companies, they are saying we are going for Bharat stage 6, or no, sorry, not Bharat stage 6, we are going for higher emission standards, right? So it's a good thing that we are moving towards higher emission standards, but the long term damages are still there, right? We are only making technology efficient. So what gets measured gets improved is very important. At the same time, what you are achieving in the end, in the long run, is even more important. Okay, so just for idea sake, I have asked that particular question. So please keep an eye on international media and also in your own country about public image. Is it actually making a difference, or is it just a perception? Okay, it's like tobacco companies. It's like tobacco companies saying we will plant more trees. Afforestation drives will be done. So yeah, so tobacco companies are taking that money and planting trees so that people will have clean air to breathe. It's just a perception again, right? Okay. Now, ethics in business. Why do we need ethics in business? The longer sustainable growth. Why this particular point? As I told you, all the stakeholders will have future plans. As long as they have some future plans, right? If the company is doing a business in an ethical fashion, it will have future, it will grow, it will sustain. Reliance is there from last 20-25 years or more than 3 decades, so I can trust Reliance. Kotak, yes. Yes Bank, no. Satyam, no. So if I trust the wrong people who involve in unethical businesses, my future won't be secure. People have lost their entire livelihoods, savings, lifetime savings because of these people, whereas good companies have longer sustainable growth. For example, Tatas are there for decades. So Tata is a brand. If you buy Tata, it's a good product. So that is the kind of trust it has been established. Next, consumer or customer confidence, happiness, and empowerment. So what do corporate governance or good business practices bring to the table? They bring happiness to the customer, right? The same example. And they empower. Let's say I purchased a certain amount of product, X product. Okay, it is not good. Then I have grievance redressal mechanism. And the company is having good customer service, responsive management. They will change the products for the welfare of the society. So empowerment of the customer is one of the core principles of corporate governance. Think about it. If there is no grievance redressal mechanism, if there is no, let's say, customer service for a company, once it sells a car, then there is no discussion with that company, then probably I will never encourage that company, right? Sooner than later, that will lead to losses, and that might force the company to do or practice unethical practices or wind up, which is long-term damage, right? Stakeholders protection we have discussed. Societal responsibility and bonding. Again, the same with public image also. Here, what is societal responsibility and bonding? If this is a society, a company is product or a part of the society, company will feed on the society, right? Company will feed on the society and grow bigger. Without the society, the company cannot grow, right? So that is the crux of corporate social responsibility. So in the same way, when I know I'm feeding from this particular society which have a different taste preference which I'm offering, I should also be careful that I should not damage this part, or I should not damage the society. I should help the society to thrive, to grow, and there should be a bond, symbiotic bond. The company should grow, society should also grow, both of them should grow collectively. That is the ultimate uh, thing about corporate social responsibilities, right? When we feel that companies are growing without having any interest. Let's say yesterday Google announced a certain amount of money for Indian society, for the India going through pandemic. Immediately, what is the reaction of people on Twitter and other social media platforms? Why not other companies are following the suit? What about fellow Indian companies, right? So So government has tweaked the corporate social responsibility clause in the first wave itself, saying any amount you invest for COVID related things is also considered as corporate social responsibility. So when the society that you are growing and feeding is suffering from COVID, you cannot be happy saying, I won't do anything, I have already done corporate social responsibility, right? So Adani is helping the oxygen cylinders and other things to be transported from country X or Y to India. So that is also help that the companies are giving back to the society. You can think of 10,000 examples like this, where every business company or small company or big company is coming together to help the society. Any other positive examples where companies are taking proactive steps to fight the pandemic? Tata, yes, the companies are manufacturing. Sterilite is no, Sterilite is not manufacturing. Government of Tamil Nadu is taking over Sterilite plant. We cannot call it as corporate ethics or like business practice, right? Government of Tamil Nadu is forcefully taking the Sterilite plant to create oxygen, and oxygen alone. So uh, many companies shifted and started producing sanitizers. Hmm. Okay. See, that is what I'm saying. Find examples from your current affairs. That will make your answers fantastic. It will enhance your answers like anything else, because theory is very boring. You can read the theory, but unless you link it to some current affair example, examiner is not going to appreciate your answers. So when you read newspapers, everything you read in the newspapers should have some end goal, right? So societal responsibility and bonding. So let's say Reliance Industry. Reliance announces hypothetically that all the phone calls in India are unlimited broadband will be, sorry, unlimited data will be given to all the Indian citizens for the next 3 months to stay in home. Okay, to help them sail through the lockdown without affecting mental health. So there is a bond between the Reliance users and uh, the company, so that even after the pandemic, people will start respecting that particular company, etc. Exactly my point, Deepthi. Here, Vedanta company has nothing to do with anything. Vedanta actually requested the government to open the plant, but government did not give the permission. But the same industry or the same infrastructure now is being used to manufacture oxygen. So the company doesn't have any say whatsoever. So as far as my knowledge goes, it's government of Tamil Nadu, the state of Tamil Nadu, which is taking a proactive step here. Okay. Next, welfare of the employees. See, again, link it to pandemic. Any company, do you know that they are taking care of the employees in the COVID lockdown? Most of the companies are still encouraging work from home, right? employee stock option plans are given, right? So when you take care of your employees, welfare of the employees, that is why you need business ethics. And one of the most underrated or ignored part of corporate governance is employee growth. For example, all of you know that government sector will take care of its employees even after retirement, pension benefits, health benefits, etc. But in corporate sector, employees treated as a disposable actually, because uh, he will work for me for a certain amount of time, then he will move on to a certain company. There is no loyalty for between him and me, right? So that's a nice example, Sharath. But it's not scalable, right? Okay. So company and employee growth. So employee growth is a very, very important factor in ethical businesses. As long as you focus on the growth of your employee along with your own company, then both the visions will be aligned. So as long as the employee doesn't feel he's a part of the system, right, he's only going to work for the money. But when the employee feels that my vision, my personal growth and the company's growth both are aligned together and my security is assured, he will work on a whole new level. His potential will be maximized, right? So very self-explanatory, but again, the problem comes in examples. When you read newspapers or any material, if you don't find examples, it is going to hurt you to implement all these things. Now, very quickly, I will share the PDF anyhow, but just remember, we were discussing about framework, right? So this framework is legal regulatory mechanisms. The most important one being Government of India, that is Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Companies Act 2013 is enacted by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Now, why do we need an entire Ministry for Corporate Affairs? As I told you, the spillover effects by any company are manifold. So that is why Companies Act is one of the most important legislations in the country. So to achieve $5 trillion economy or any other dream, company should perform. So a legal mechanism should be there for ease of doing business, for anything you can think of, like an act should be there. And Companies Act is a very, very important act. And we also have Companies Act, or sorry, Competition Act under Ministry of Corporate Affairs. See, again, examples. Recently, we have seen Google under the Competition Act. Cement companies forming a cartel, right? Next, what else? Mergers and acquisitions. Let's say hostile takeovers. Let's say WhatsApp yes, Competition Commission of India. Very good. Hostile takeovers. Company X is manipulating companies by shares or its employees, shares, employees, or board of directors to purchase the company Y, right? At the end of the day, it is a Competition Commission of India which has to give its blessing to the company X. Yes, X can take over Y. That merger will be approved only when Competition Commission of India thinks there is no hostile takeover. If there is an unethical practice in the entire scenario, then company Y is protected, right? So that is the role of importance of Companies Act or Competition Commission of India Act, and the role played by Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Next, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, company secretaries, the cost accountants of ICAI. Now, so chartered accounts go for creative account or account manipulations. So the role of auditors become very, very important. As long as companies are more than willing to manipulate the accounts, okay, so corporate governance cannot survive, right? Next, serious fraud investigation office, security board, exchange board of India. It's purely static part, right? Stock exchanges, where secondary markets flourish. So if stock exchanges are not having rules and regulations, then companies prices will increase and fall very, very drastically. That is not good for both the company and for the investors. Enforcement Directorate, income tax department. See, purely static, I'm not even going to read it, waste of time. Now, again, theoretical mostly, but a very important part is why we need business ethics. Okay, what are the steps taken by Government of India? The most important thing that Government of India has done for the corporate governance in India is establishing Companies Act 2013. Now, as I told you, the spillover effect is on corporate social responsibility. If companies thrive and survive, corporate social responsibility will be taken care of, and corporate social responsibility will have positive impact on the society. For this, company has to be healthy. And how can a company be healthy? Company can be healthy by following all the regulations of Companies Act 2013, right? So the theory part, I will leave it up to you to read, but the application part is more important. So please keep an eye on this section of the paper. Why? This is more important. Why and ethics of business and the applications of corporate governance in the society. For example, can you think of any uh, patent infringement or intellectual property right infringement, and how is it impacting the uh, economics of or the company's performance? See, cyber attacks have increased. So cyber espionage by company X on company Y has also increased. It's not like only the Chinese will keep hacking the other companies, right? So for patent and other information, company X will be hacking company Y. So have you seen any such examples? Any latest corporate issues in the country? So please do read this PDF. It's mostly self-explanatory. I don't think you will have any issues whatsoever. It's very easy to read also because it's purely factual. Remdesivir case, okay. Good. Any questions on why corporate governance is important? See, the spillover effects is everything. The negative spillovers or positive spillovers are everything. And what is the definition of corporate governance and why it is important? If you understand these three things, what Government of India has done, you can read in GS paper 3 also, because Companies Act come in GS paper 3 as well. It's not like it will make a huge impact in your ethics paper. And why corporate social responsibility flows from Companies Act 2013. Any other questions? There is no official single question in UPSC in last 8 years on corporate governance. Like what is corporate governance or what are the impacts? So there is no question till date. The only question is about corporate social responsibility. Any questions? Okay, so then I will share the PDF. Do read the PDF. Tomorrow we will discuss about ethics and international relations. After that, we will enter into the probity governance parts, right? So do try to find out some examples of corporate things you have seen in the newspaper, right? And if you have any questions, message me on Telegram. Right. Thank you. See you all in the evening.